Nadine.
I'm always on the lookout for ways to stay healthy naturally in midlife. And one of the aims of this podcast is to introduce you to experts and innovators who are changing the way we think about health. I believe true wellness comes from working with our body's natural intelligence, not against it, and that we can support our bodies naturally rather than relying solely on pharmaceutical medications. Today's guest, Greg the Hydrogen Man, embodies that truth. His journey from illness to vitality is both inspiring and deeply empowering, and he's now helping others to improve their health naturally with this simple hack. Welcome, Greg. We just had
Thank you so much.
a little giggle just as we hit record because we were talking about name pronunciations and yeah. So I think we caught that. I'm keeping it
No,
in.
I'll say it's such a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for a beautiful introduction. And it was actually extremely accurate. And before I begin, I always like to say I'm not going to give any medical advice today. I'm
Okay.
not making any medical claims, and I'm not making any claims for or against any products. Just got to put that out there at the beginning.
Got it. Thank you. I think that's I'm not very cautious with those kinds of things. But I understand that it's an important point to make. So thanks for doing that.
And unfortunately for me, I have been attacked on a level
Mm,
that I never thought I would be. And the results that I've seen from these protocols that I've created from me being sick and having to find my way out of it, even though I worked in the medical field, which is really ironic. But I think that's the whole reason they've really been going after me. So I hope to bring good information for your viewers today. But we got to be cautious because you know the legal
yes,
thing, you know how
yes,
this
yes, yes.
works. So with that, I'll give you the floor.
Yeah, thank you. I have had a couple of other guests on the show who have one in particular I can think of, a lady who has cured herself naturally from cancer, and we did have that conversation actually. How it's very sensitive ground because obviously there are people going through their own experiences with illnesses and how they're trying to heal and trusting in the protocols that they've been recommended, and obviously we don't everyone's open to making their own choices and decisions and trying their own things. However, you don't want to end up feeling like you're liable for telling someone this is the way and the only way and so on and so forth.
Yeah, we'll just let them make up their own mind. But I'm a big data guy, so I'm about to give you a lot of data. I'm not an opinion guy. I'll give you the data.
You're allowed to have a bit of an opinion as well. That's okay. And you've got some first-hand experience. So let's start there because you've got quite a literally miraculous story of healing of your own. Could you kick us off by sort of taking us there and letting us know how you came to where you are today?
Yeah, to keep it really brief, first of all, I'm not even supposed to be alive right now. So technically, I'm already a miracle. I had numerous medical issues. In fact, my health was so poor, it was extremely bad. I had tumors in my body. I had a major heart condition, which is what was supposed to already have killed me. I also had a really bad problem with my immune system and autoimmune issues and a lot of gut issues. And my liver and my kidneys were definitely not, to their optimal, function as far as the way they should be functioning. And just a lot of inflammation in my body. The pain I was having was probably my biggest driving force to finding the answer because I was in such extreme pain that I was literally at a level 10. And if they gave me morphine, for example, it didn't even make a dent. That's how bad my pain was. It was excruciating. And it was so bad that it kept me from even having the ability to walk. So I was literally bedridden for 6 months at a time, 4 months at a time. I would maybe finally get out of bed for a week or two and boom, it would happen again. And then I'd be down again for 4 to 6 months at a time. So for a guy who was super athletic before all this and in really good shape to not be able to even walk was a soul crusher. It crushed my soul. It crushed my inspiration. It crushed everything. I literally didn't even want to live anymore. It was really bad. The sad part was is that I was kind of hoping this stuff would kill me, and I was living for years and years and years like this. And I thought, you know what? I don't really have a choice. I either need to find a way to get this to stop because I didn't really want to accelerate my end as far as ending my life. So you don't have a lot of choices. And so I ended up, just to let your audience know, I worked in the medical field for 2 decades or more. I definitely know how Western medicine works. I've worked with numerous specialists. I know exactly the rules of the game. And I saw very clearly that we don't know much about what we're doing. We have really great science, but there's too many gatekeepers to it. And it caused a lot of problems for what we could offer patients. And it became a really major problem. And when I got really sick, I knew that Western medicine would not help me. Although I did try it because I was so desperate and I had no other choice. But interestingly enough, it did virtually nothing. And then I had to find my own way. And so I'm a big, the way, just so people understand how my brain works, so that you know how I found my protocols. One, I read a lot of scientific data and I look at the latest data. So people don't understand that in Western medicine, they don't have the latest stuff. A lot of times they're 1 to 2 decades behind. Even though we have really awesome science, it doesn't reach the masses for decades and sometimes even gets, suppressed. And so that's one of the issues. The other thing that I did is I read a lot of ancient books looking for ancient knowledge for health in order to apply that in certain ways. The third thing is I did a lot of critical thinking. So I did a lot of my own independent thinking. I can give you one example that I think is really important because I used to watch podcasts about health. And for me, as an individual, it became extremely frustrating because here you got one podcaster saying you should eat nothing but meat. That will solve all your problems. Then you have another person saying, no, 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 you should eat nothing but vegetables. And then you have somebody saying, no, you should eat nothing but fruit. And no, you should drink nothing but alkaline water. No, you should drink nothing but this water. And everybody's contradicting each other, and you really don't know what path to take. And I took a lot of these paths, and they were a massive waste of time, a massive waste of money, a lot of wasted effort. And it became extremely frustrating, especially for somebody who was suffering the way that I was suffering. So that was the path that I had to go down before I could really find my way. And in the end, just to give you one example of how my brain works, because there's a lot to this, but I'm giving you one simple example. When I thought about water, I thought, well, do I want it to be alkaline? Do I want it to be spring water? Do I want it to be that water? I didn't know the answer. In my critical thinking, I thought, I just want clean water. Is that a problem? Like, I don't want pharmaceuticals in my water. I don't want fluoride in my water. I don't want forever chemicals in my water. I don't want all this crap in my water. I don't care about the pH. The water could be alkaline and it's filled with all this crap. And that's what I learned by doing critical thinking. In fact, I even have a third-party lab test here about water because I know everything about water. I actually became a water expert. It was one of the things that I had to learn in order to find my way out of this. I also became a medical gas expert. So there's numerous medical gases that have different effects on the human body. And the most powerful one that I've ever seen and learned, thank God to the Japanese, because they're the ones who uncovered it, and that's molecular hydrogen. For those who don't know what molecular hydrogen is, it's a gas, just like oxygen is a gas. And the way that it affects biology is important to understand so that you can potentially get really great benefits from it, which I clearly did. I'm still alive now. And then, of course, learning about diet, talking about diets like talking about religion and politics. Everybody loses their minds. And I don't personally care about, opinions. I'm about data. And so, ironically, when it comes to diet, and I won't get too much into it because everybody's going to lose their mind, but I basically eventually followed the people that lived the longest in the world and of any industrialized nation, and that's Japan. Okay. And I observe a lot of the Japanese habits and it lined up. See, I look for the data in multiple areas and then they have to line up. So if I look at the way the Japanese do a lot of their meals, does it line up with the science? And on it goes. And so this is the way that I constructed these protocols that, to be quite upfront with you, shocking what I've seen them do. So just to give you some examples, Nadine, of what I've seen, I'm talking about people with blood pressure issues, cholesterol issues, issues with diabetes, arthritis, a lot of eye issues like glaucoma, things, for example, like macular degeneration. And these are all people that I've worked with. So I've been doing this for like a decade. I've worked with people with dementia, Alzheimer's, TBI, which is traumatic brain injury, which is very similar to some of these dementia patients. I've worked with people with a lot of gut issues, from IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease, celiac disease, leaky gut syndrome, people with autoimmune issues. I've worked with so many people.
Pretty much everything.
I would say the majority, not everything, but a very large number. And the success that my protocols that I've seen them do is actually shocking to me, that a little old me, because I'm not super mega genius man. You know, I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm an idiot or that I'm dumb because I do have a higher IQ. And I don't like to talk about that because there's no point. I'm not trying to toot my own horn. That's not the point. The point is that these simple protocols that I created, I'm just shocked how good they work. One of my latest, I'll give you a few testimonials, my latest ones. They're really shocking. A guy with Parkinson's who couldn't even stand up, by the way, let alone walk. Forget walking. This guy couldn't even stand. I just released footage of this guy walking from doing my protocols. And the doctors that treat these patients, when they see what I've accomplished with their patients, they almost always contact me because they're like, how did you do this? This is not normal. How are you accomplishing this? Another one that I just recently released was a woman who was almost 100 years old, multiple heart conditions, and blood pressure issues for over 3 decades. She's been on pharmaceuticals. And they told her, we can't do surgery on you because you're too old. It's probably going to kill you. Live out your days, be grateful for every day that you got, and you're just going to die. Her family found me, put her on my protocol, and I'm not kidding you. All her heart conditions are gone, never needed surgery. I even released on my channel, my YouTube channel, which I do everything for free. I released the email from the cardiologist that basically saying that everything shows up negative now. All her heart conditions are gone, and they had to take her off the pharmaceuticals. And they're just like, how are you doing this? This is so crazy, miraculous. And by the way, almost nobody knows about me. So thank you for having me on your show, because a lot of shows won't even have me on because it comes down to money and politics and all this nonsense. And so thank you for being brave enough to bring me on. And I hope that your viewers can continue to help get this word out. So anybody who can share this video, give the video a thumbs up, because that's how the algorithm works, right? And on it goes. I could give you tons of examples, but I'll go ahead and shut up here for a second and see what questions you might have. But this is how crazy this whole thing is.
Like, I totally want to hear more about like how the protocols you're using and how that works. But I'd love to step back a little bit to, and I said, and like you've had this major life experience, and you managed to put it into like a few minutes, the seriously abridged version, right? But I'd love to know a little bit more about that, because it just sounds like almost like just
Too
so
good to be true.
too good to be true.
I know.
And like, how did it all unfold for you? Were you born with a heart condition, or like, did you have? Was it like a process of your health just started to deteriorate? You know, from an immune system breakdown, and then you, like, what happened? How did that all unfold for you?
All right, Nadine, this is very embarrassing for me to share. But because it's important for humans and their health, I'm going to do it. But I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to try to get through this without crying. When I was really young, I went through a lot of things that I don't need to go into too much detail, but it caused me to reach a very powerful depression, where all I did was wanted my life to end every single day. I thought about how to do it. And I attempted it many times, which was a very big problem, because trying to end my life through poisoning myself was very detrimental to my health.
Wow.
And I did something so drastic because my life just went in. The truth is, I had a very strong body. And of course, I was young, which makes you even stronger. And upon attempting to end my life so many times and it just wasn't happening, I did something so crazy drastic where I actually took almost 1,000 pills in one sitting.
Oh, wow.
I really wanted to end it. And then I combined it with alcohol, sadly, because I knew that would make it worse. And basically me surviving that was an absolute miracle. In fact, I haven't even talked about this a lot on too many social media things, but I had a NDE, the whole near-death experience, heart stopping and all this stuff, because by the time I was found, which I did all this around midnight, I wasn't found around till 6 in the morning. So it was about a good 6 hours. And by the time I was taken to the ER and all this, I actually had a doctor approach me in the private room that I was in after the whole emergency room thing, where he wanted to speak to me in private, because he said, what you did, he said, you shouldn't survive that. He said, I just don't understand how you survived, and I can't even believe that you did it. See, it was another unbelievable thing. He literally told me, he goes, I don't know if I can believe what you're saying. And I'm like, look, man, I'm not here to lie to you. In fact, I didn't do any of this to try to get any attention. I did it at midnight so nobody would find me. I wasn't found till 6:30 in the morning. So that should have been enough time to kill me. The fact that I survived was an absolute miracle. And when I asked him what should have happened to me, because I was kind of curious, he said, "You take that amount of stuff." He said, "Your heart should have given out. There's just no way you can survive." And I didn't find out till about a month later that I had done severe damage to my heart. And that was one of the reasons that I had caused this severe heart condition, not to mention all the other medical issues I had. So it was probably self-inflicted, which breaks my heart. So all I really want to do in this lifetime while I'm still alive, because I'm almost 50 years old, and I know that I don't have a lot of time because we tend to live on average 70 something years. But imagine all the stuff that I've done to my life, to my body. I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to live a normal life at this point, because of the severe damage that I've done to myself. But if I can bring good information to people that can help others, that's all that matters to me at this point. So that's why I'm here to share what I've discovered. But I am rated because I was actually tested, as crazy as this is. I had somebody see me on a show. They invited me to their lab and they did a ton of tests on me. If I were to tell you all the things they did, it was fascinating, and they did it for free. It was one of the reasons that I did it, because otherwise it would have been very expensive. But this particular man running this particular place said, "I want to know how the Hydrogen Man tests on all these things, because you are a guy who's doing something that nobody's really ever done." And when he tested me, I was off the charts. All his stuff was off the charts. I am rated as one of the top, less than 1% in the nation, as far as being one of the healthiest people alive at this point, from all the parameters that they're looking at. I don't know if I totally believe that, but that's what the numbers show. I know the damage I've done to myself, and so I'm just grateful to be able to be walking, to be alive, that my brain functions the way that it now does, and that my heart is working the way that it does. But I'm not going to have the delusion or illusion that I didn't do damage and that my life probably has not been shortened. I wish I took care of myself since I was little, the way that I now take care of myself and know the things that I know. But again, it's all for other people. So this is what this is all about. So again, I thank you for sharing this with people.
Thank you for sharing that. Do you, well, firstly, I, I think it's probably quite promising that you might be reverse aging with the protocols, and fingers crossed that all that you're doing is actually undoing the damage that you may have caused your body in earlier life. I'm curious, do you ever wonder whether your emotional experience contributed to your poor health?
Absolutely. I don't even need to wonder it. The Japanese have done extensive research showing that high amounts of stress, which I definitely went through in my youth, actually produces poisons and toxins within the body that actually can be even more harmful than even garbage junk food, which is how crazy powerful stress can be. And we know this, Nadine. I don't even need to make this up. We know that somebody can have a heart attack just from stress. That's just your mind. And so it's very true that our emotional state has a lot to do with our health. And so I don't lie to myself about that. I'm very well aware of it. So there is a dichotomy in regards to understanding the flesh, which is, by the way, in spiritual books, which I've read, but the flesh as far as knowing the water to drink, the food to eat, all these things, and then the emotional aspect of it. How do you feel emotionally? Are you happy? Are you miserable? Are you depressed? Are you at peace? And both these sides have a lot to do with your health.
Yes, yeah, totally agree. Can you take us to, so when you were in your introduction, you were sort of taking us through all of the things, your mind and your curiosity and your desire to research. So you were very unwell. You were in the Western medical system, I assume. You were being
Yes.
given morphine and drugs and to try and make you comfortable. But you had a desire to find. You've almost found, knew that there was something more, something missing, something that could help you, or you were at a point where you needed to find something. How did you?
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry, go.
no, you're good. No, the biggest issue is that even the medications that they would try to give me to make me comfortable, which ultimately, as we know, it's going to kill me, right? I think the biggest turning point was the fact that the medications weren't working. I mean, they were giving me such strong medication and it didn't make a dent. That's a pretty big deal, because for the strongest of medications, from opioids to things like morphine, these very strong drugs that didn't even make a dent in my pain, it gave me no choice. In fact, some of these drugs, my body had such a terrible reaction that I would start shaking and sweating
Mm.
and get it super pale. The shaking made the pain worse. I couldn't even take the medication. So now I had to go without medication for pain. And not that it would make a difference, but I was in pure suffering and not for 24 hours. Imagine the the pain that you can imagine. And it went for me for years. I mean, it scrambled my brain to the point where I began to realize what pain does to the mind and how you will do things that are beyond logic. Again, I wanted to throw myself off a cliff or something because I couldn't take it anymore. It was extreme, and it gave me no choice. And I prayed to God for the guidance and the help because I didn't know how to find the answers. And I knew I needed help because if I'm really upfront with you, I didn't have a desire to read scientific papers. You know how many pages there are of this garbage? And then you find something that you can't even get a hold of anyway. And it became so utterly frustrating. And I just knew that I had to dig into the depths of my soul and ask God for help. And I did make a promise. This is I will say between you and me, but everybody's hearing it now and just me being vulnerable here. But I did make a prayer and I just told God, I said, look, if you can guide me to the answers that will resolve these issues that I have, I just know that it will help others. I just know it would. And I said, if you help me and guide me, I promise that I'll share it with others. Hence the reason I do my YouTube channel for everything for free. Hence the reason I'm here. I do it all for free, share all the information. And I don't know what he did to me, but he did something within that 2 week prayer because something came over me where I began to be able to read literature that I couldn't read before. Because I have to have an interest in order to grasp it. And I didn't have it. I didn't want to do all this homework. We're talking years of homework and trying to figure out how to apply it in a simple way that's accessible to everybody so that I could be able to really truly share it. And so it was a very long road and it's been a lot of work. And the answers, I wish I would have found them much sooner, but the answers are much simpler than any of us would have thought.
Mm. So when was the moment? When was the moment that you discovered hydrogen water, and started trying it for yourself? And how did your health start to change?
So before we even get into the hydrogen thing, I just want to say one thing real quick. How you make the hydrogen
Mm.
matters.
Yes.
Because some people will say, "Oh, I already heard about hydrogen." For example,
Yeah,
hydrogen
yeah, yeah.
tablets, I
Yeah.
would never take them. I would literally would never take them. All these cheap little products, like these little bottles,
You've
I
got
would never
one.
use them. After learning everything that I've learned, I would never use those things. Most of the products in regards to hydrogen come from China.
Yeah.
Now, if you really think that China has your best health and their best interest, you might want to think again. Okay, you should see I've seen lab reports on what they do to their food, what they do even to their herbs, their teas. It's crazy. It's absolute lunacy. So luckily, the Japanese, and I mean, the Japanese they're a treasure to humanity. I don't think people sometimes realize the things that they've done and discovered for humanity. And I won't go into some of the details because sometimes it gets the channels flagged, even some of the best medicines ever created. But what I was doing is I was just reading medical data and I read about hydrogen and I actually thought it was a scam. For people who are watching right now, I'm a big skeptic. There's a lot of nonsense out there. So when I read everything, I don't believe it, right? And so I have to be very cautious about thinking critically. And as I read the data on molecular hydrogen, I thought this is way too good to be true. This can't even be true. I couldn't accept it. I read the data for almost 4 years. 4 years of reading this stuff before I was so desperate. My health was so bad that I literally, what I felt was like I was on my deathbed. And a lot of people who knew me thought the same because I mean, you can imagine what happens to you when you're bedridden for so long and
Mm.
muscle atrophying and all the different things that happen to your body. And I'm reading the data thinking, where is this coming from? And is this legitimate? And when I started digging into it, I noticed that it was coming from Japan. A lot of Japanese scientists, even university hospitals, like big time guys. But then I started thinking, okay, I'm willing to try it. Where in the world do you get molecular hydrogen? Do you go to your corner drugstore? No. Do you understand the dosing? Do you even know how to use it? And again, do you know where to get it? And I looked up products and you'd be like, oh look, this product makes it. This must save my life, right? No, because I tried these things. I tried the gimmicks, they didn't work. I became a little disillusioned thinking that maybe this stuff won't work. But that's when I became ultimately what I would call now a hydrogen production expert. So what I had to learn was how you produce things matters. Let's give you an example. How you produce vegetables. Are they being sprayed with herbicides, pesticides, all sorts of chemicals? Are they grown in depleted soils? Does that matter? Of course it matters, right? Are you GMOing this stuff? Or what exactly are you doing to these different things? How you produce things matter. And it's no different for something like molecular hydrogen, which is ultimately a gas. So when you're in a hospital, they do have tanks of different types of gases. For example, oxygen. They have oxygen tanks in hospitals, and it's called medical grade
Mm.
oxygen. Now, do you know what medical grade actually means, Nadine?
I don't know, but you've made
Most,
me
most
worry about what it means.
exactly, but most people should know this. Medical grade means that it's of extremely high purity.
Uh-huh.
It's medical grade so that you don't have impurities that will cause issues for people's
Right.
health. I mean, this is all extremely important. And so I had to learn every method of making molecular hydrogen, the good and the bad about every method. And then that's when I realized that the things that I was doing, like hydrogen tablets and these other cheap little products, I didn't realize the potential detriment of these products. But do you think that the people who sell these products care? They don't. This is what I've learned by being in this industry, by learning everything, because I've had companies try to recruit me and offer me a lot of money, by the way, which I turned down because they wanted me to promote things and share information. They just care about selling crap. That's all they care about, right? And that's not what I cared about. I made a promise, and I made a promise, as you know, as I said, to God. You think I'm going to start selling out and just to make money? No way. And did I lose a lot of money over this? Yes. I mean, I lost a lot of things. I lost my house. I lost my job. I lost a lot of things because I couldn't work. The inability to walk, you can't do anything.
Mm.
And when your brain, when you're in so much pain, you can't even think straight. It really screws you up. And so I really took a huge deep dive into understanding all this. And it was very difficult. But again, I hope that the information that we're about to provide today will be helpful for everybody who's listening.
Yeah, right. It's quite extraordinary that given you tried some of the products that you have now discovered are less favorable, that you kept going. There was something, it was like an itch you had to scratch by the sounds of things. Like,
Well, I almost gave
there's got
up.
to, because yeah, why wouldn't you give up? Because that's what most of us would do. You try it, nothing happens. I don't notice any difference in the way I feel. I'm not
Well,
going to do
I
it
know
anymore.
because I was looking at data from the scientific studies
Mm.
and I started lining up the data with these products and it wasn't lining up. And I was thinking, wait a second, what's going on here? And I just kept following data. It's like a little breadcrumb trail. And eventually it led me to the number one hydrogen company in the world, which is a Japanese company. And then I quickly realized that they had the number one product in all of Japan and literally in the world. And then I had to learn about hydrogen production in order to understand what made their product so great. And then I tried their product and it was life changing. That's when my heart condition went away. That's when my cardiologist was like, what in the world did you just do? Because we have all the proof in the world that this thing was about to kill you. And
Mm.
we're telling you you need surgery. And now it's magically gone. And then I started using my protocols on other people who had suffered from heart conditions just like I did. And their conditions started disappearing. Just like that woman who's almost 100 years old. And it was like, what in the world's going on here? How is this working so good? And then you look into the story. Nadine, this is unbelievable. It almost, I'm going to hold back my tears because this one really makes me cry almost every time. The man who produced the equipment, his story, and it was about his daughter. I mean, this guy never had children, has his first daughter, and his daughter's born sick. In fact, she's born with a very severe case of ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's disease. They're telling him she'll be lucky to make it to the age of 3 or 5 years old. Absolute mess. And this guy dug into his heart. He dug into his soul. He knew about hydrogen because he heard about the medical literature in Japan because they were way ahead of everybody. He looked for every answer he could look for his daughter. In fact, he purchased a bunch of not medical equipment, a lot of hydrogen equipment. Again, like the pills, like these little devices and other bigger machines that are more expensive. And he was going to use them on his daughter. He went to the doctor who was treating her. And the doctor literally said, you give that to your daughter, you're running the risk of her life ending. And he's like, what? Why? Hydrogen's so amazing. He said, because what you don't realize is that when you produce hydrogen in certain ways, there is a risk of impurities that you create along the path of making the medicine, quote unquote. And that's why he set out to make the best hydrogen machine in the world. He literally went to huge industries in Japan, like Toyota. Toyota's involved in this. Yamaha, G-Shock, Kobe Steel, huge masters of industry that have the top engineers literally in the world, especially when specializing about hydrogen. So he did this whole project from the heart. I even found out that he was advised to go to China to make the product because he would save money. And he said, no, I'm not going to do that because China will screw it up. And so he said, I'm going to do everything in Japan, everything in house. I will not let this go down the wrong path. And he ended up making a machine that I believe is helping so many people if people only knew about it. Because a lot of people don't even know that it exists. And there's been a lot of suppression about it. There's a lot of even videos, people trying to say bad things about it. And it's literally the best machine there is. And Japan doesn't make any bad videos, but it's people in America who are trying to bash it, mostly for the reasons of commerce and business, because it's mostly companies that don't like this information out because they want to sell you the cheap Chinese garbage, right? The cheap stuff. And so they feel threatened by the Japanese equipment. It's so good. It's actually light years ahead of any hydrogen technology as far as equipment that can make hydrogen. There's nothing even comes close. They're very advanced. I even had to learn all about metallurgy, which is the science of metals. I didn't realize how big of a deal that was in the science of hydrogen. I had to learn about membranes. There's a lot of membranes that could potentially, let's just say they're not intended for human consumption, and yet they use them in all the Chinese products, which really should be a caution to people. And so, yeah, no, the Japanese did something very special, and it was just because of this man. And to be quite honest with you, I eventually realized, and I believe he wrote an email that I saw that he said, I believe that what happened to my daughter, although it's very sad, I believe that this might have been part of my purpose
Did she
for
pass
humanity.
away?
No, she's still alive.
Oh,
She's
she's
almost
still
18 years
alive.
old. No, she's an
Oh,
absolute
wow.
miracle. Yeah, she's a miracle. The technology, she's the only person in the world ever, by the way. So she's the only one. That's how amazing this technology was, because the technology he eventually built with the help of many top engineers definitely prolonged and saved her life. And so I really think this is something extremely special that the world doesn't hear about much.
Wow. And so when did you start using it? So you've discovered this guy and is it a machine?
Yeah, if people want to see what I use or the equipment, the official company site is called
Yes,
holyhydrogen.com.
yes, I've
And
had a
people
look at
can
that.
go and check out that equipment.
Yeah,
And
cool.
of course, I had to learn. So I didn't have to just learn about metals and hydrogen and all these different things, but I also had to learn about water. So
Mm,
I actually became a water expert also, because part of the technology, you use water as a carrier for the gas. So you can actually
got
dissolve
it.
gases into
Okay.
water.
Yes.
And so I had to become a water expert, and I wanted the cleanest water in the world because after seeing what's in water, like if I just gave you some examples,
I was
pages,
going to ask you about this. Yeah.
pages of the most
Water
craziest things in water.
contaminants.
You can't begin to fathom what's in our water, Nadine. It's
Mm,
no wonder that it makes us sick. I mean, if I were to give you one example, okay, let's pull up just one just to show you a little bit. So have you ever heard of forever chemicals?
yes.
So here's an example. Here's a couple of them. These are the levels that were found in the water. This goes for
Mm,
everything here. After the process, and I use a different process for purifying the water, which is different than the hydrogen process.
mhm.
After the purification process, look, it's all gone. Zeros everywhere.
Wow.
And
Wow.
by the way,
Pretty
average or
promising.
normal water filters will not do that.
Mm.
No water filter is going to eliminate everything.
So
There's a
the
special
product
process.
that you use to hydrogenate your water also filters it. Is that?
No,
Oh,
no.
okay.
So what I've done, because a lot of people actually, people think that I own businesses. I actually don't any because I don't want to own any. But what I did is I looked for the best businesses. So I looked for the best hydrogen company. I looked for
Yeah.
the best water filtration company. I looked for the best nutrients. And it was really hard because throughout all of my homework, what I ultimately discovered is that the majority of companies are corrupt. And I'm not going to name companies because I've already been attacked for that. But all I'm going to say is that I don't trust the majority of companies that sell supplements, products. It's become such a fad, much like the pharmaceutical industry. So much of the stuff is just garbage, nonsense. They're not there to help you. They're there to try to make a buck, and they'll tell you whatever they have to tell you for that. I drew the line where I said, I will not do that. I want to be able to sleep at night, you know, and I only want to share with people what really, really works. And so if people want to see the water purification process that I've chosen, which is these lab reports are based on that, it's a
Uh-huh.
different web, a whole other
Okay.
company. It's called the Carbon Distiller, and you can find them on a website called mypurewater.com. And of course, if people want discount codes because it helps people and it helps support what I'm trying to do, the code is uprising144K. That's the name of my YouTube channel, and it's also the code to get discounts. But that's the equipment that I use. Now, if you want to understand the science of why, my video 388 shows the data about water and why water filters don't really tend to work very good, and why carbon distillation is the way that you truly clean water, not just from all these chemicals, by the way, but also parasites, bacteria, viruses, a lot of different types of pathogens, which your average water filter just cannot do. So, and there's stuff, by the way, in our water that I believe people don't even know about, stuff that they're not even testing for these days, because I hate to tell you, but they are putting stuff in our water. And I don't necessarily want to go down that rabbit hole. I just rather show people how to clean their water and just make it that simple.
And a rabbit hole it is. That, yeah, I feel like I'm totally with you on, obviously wanting the best, wanting the purest, but I also don't want to dishearten people if they feel like they're doing the right thing. I feel like if we're making steps in the right direction, like I'm certainly not, I'm using, we've got water filtration on our home. And that's the best we can do right now. But, and I feel like, the more we learn, the more we educate ourselves, the better we can get. But that I don't want to dishearten people to think that what they're doing isn't enough. Maybe it's not enough, but it's a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. I mean, your average water filter will take certain things out, but you also have to be cautious, Nadine, because there are now lawsuits from Chinese water filters. They're made in China, and now they've been shown in certain lab reports. In some ways, they actually contaminate your water, and you're thinking, "What? I got a water filter to clean my water, not to contaminate it." And so, it's really important to know the facts.
Yeah.
I think having a whole water filtration system for your home, I think it's great. I'm not against that. It's just that there's levels of how you can do this.
Yes.
But when you're extremely sick, you have to go extreme. Because if you don't, and you just try to do little steps, if you're healthy and you do little steps, hey, it's great. But when your life is on the line, you have to make some pretty big changes. And I've learned that the hard way, sadly.
Yeah, and we're exposed to so many toxins and chemicals in our environments that we don't, if you can't see them, you don't realize they're there. But can you talk just briefly about some of the things that we can find in like contaminants? You mentioned those forever chemicals. Where do they come from? Are they like laundry detergents, that sort of thing? I know that some of them can contain forever chemicals.
If we wanted to get into it, it would literally take your show and about 20 more shows. I mean, they're in everything, Nadine. It's in your clothes, it's in your food, it's in your laundry detergents, it's everywhere. Which, by the way, I also know how to show you guys how to protect yourselves from these things. I mean, we could spend way too much time. I could spend a whole hour explaining it, or I could just tell you how to do it. But I can explain why they're doing certain things to your body, and they're everywhere. That's why it's so important. Water is one of the biggest ones, though. Water is so absolutely crucial for your health. Like, if I were to give you an example, like, for example, about microplastics. People seem to know about this by now, right? You know what the number one source of microplastics are that enter your body? You know where they're coming from? Your water.
Yeah.
So it is absolutely crucial and imperative to clean your water if you're trying to be healthy. You know how many people buy all these supplements, and they have a whole cupboard full of supplements, and they don't even clean their water properly? What are we doing here? We want to go after the big stuff. I don't want to sweat the small stuff. It's like spending money. You can buy a little trinket here, a little trinket there, and it's not a big deal. Where's the big money spent? On your house, on your car, right? Those are the big stuff in medical care, depending on how sick you are. So let's try to go after the big stuff rather than nitpicking the tiny little things that saves you 50 cents here, $1 there. I got to go after the big stuff. And that's the mentality that I have when I go after things. And water is absolutely foundational. And the body needs water in order to really flush this garbage out of your body, not bring it into your body. I mean, if you're bringing it into your body, I mean, what are you doing trying to take all these special supplements if you're bringing in all this garbage that causes numerous issues in your body, which I don't need to get into either. It takes too long. But I like to keep things simple since it's a short show.
and you've got your YouTube channel, so listeners can go there and get lots of education around the protocols and what's going on and how we can get better at doing all of these things, including filtering water.
Yeah, I have over 400 videos. I know a lot of people say it can be difficult for them, but I mean, remember, I've been doing this for like a decade, so there's a massive amount of information. I like to keep it really simple, and the magic is super clean water,
Yep.
super clean, magically, correctly made hydrogen,
Yep.
with super clean water, and then just overcoming what I call nutritional deficiencies.
Yes.
That's a
Okay.
huge one because the average person is deficient. In fact, the data shows that almost everybody's deficient.
Mm.
And one of my goals was to overcome every nutritional deficiency, which is almost unheard of. But I did that because of the science. Look, just so people understand, the data is clear scientifically. Talk to any doctor with half a brain, and he'll be able to tell you. We know for a fact that when you have nutritional deficiencies, it leads to disease.
Yeah.
So if I give you an example like vitamin C, if you're deficient in vitamin C, guess what? You're going to get scurvy. What's the solution to scurvy? Some magical pharmaceutical? No. Getting your proper levels of vitamin C, your scurvy is going to resolve. And this goes for every single nutrient in your body. And it's so hard for people to figure out how to do that. So I was creating these protocols, but I didn't know if they'd work. So I started paying a lot of money. I spent a lot to help people. And I was doing blood work regularly in order to find out that my protocols were working. The shocking part is, just so you understand, when you work in Western medicine, which I did and I understand, they only call you when there's a problem. They don't call you to say, hey, great news, your blood work looks great.
Yeah.
They only call, and that's the rule of thumb, and that's fine. I got a phone call from this doctor of 30 years experience that she has in reading blood work, and I panicked. I'm like, oh my God, if you're calling me, I knew immediately there's a problem. And I'm like, what did you find? She goes, well, just calm down. I said, just tell me what you found. You don't need to sugarcoat, don't need to go round and round for 10 minutes. Tell me what you found. And she said, I want you to calm down. I didn't find anything. And then I was like, why are you calling then? And she said, in over 30 years of reading people's blood work, not one time. And I thought, not once, not one time, not 10 times, not 20 times, not even once. She said, have I ever seen blood look like yours? It's so unbelievable. She said, literally so unbelievable. She said, that's why I'm calling you. I'm calling you because I want to know what in the world are you doing? Because I have sick patients I can't help. She started opening up. She goes, I have family members that are sick that I can't help. She said, I'm a doctor and I can't even help myself. She goes, I have medical issues too. And she said, how are you accomplishing this? I have to know. And then when I started explaining to her some of the things as far as, well, I purify my water, I use molecular hydrogen gas, she's like, what? Like she was so utterly confused. She's like, I just can't believe this. And then she asked me about my diet. Oh my gosh, don't even get me started on that one because people argue about diet so much. And all I'm going to say is when she found out that about my diet, she actually told me, she goes, that's impossible. She goes, it's literally impossible what you just told me. She said, there's no way that you have no nutritional deficiencies and you eat the way you do. She goes, let me guess. This is literally what she said. She said, let me guess. You've been on this diet for 3 to 6 months or something. And I said, I've been doing it for over a decade. She's like, what? She goes, that's impossible. And then she stopped herself and she said, but I'm looking at your blood work and it's clearly possible. And so it was so utterly dramatic. She just literally couldn't believe it. But after she learned a little bit about the stuff I was doing, she actually became a little, she's like, well, none of my patients are going to go and clean their water like that. None of my patients are going to get on the hydrogen. And this is why I tell people all the time, because I do consults, but I don't care about the money. I will not do a consult with somebody who's going to be lazy
Mm.
because they waste my time. I don't even care if they pay me. I don't care. I'm not going to do it, and because I give a lot of myself when I try to help somebody. And so ultimately, what she learned and realized in our brief phone call is that it requires effort to change your life. And sadly, we need equipment to purify our water. We need special equipment for the hydrogen. I show people how to get nutrients properly. There's a few things that I use, and people should know I use almost no supplements.
Mm.
So I was able to accomplish all this without having a cupboard full of supplements. I became quickly disillusioned by supplements when I started seeing the lab reports and what was in them. And it was absolutely shocking to me the amount of garbage in this products. And I didn't learn until companies tried to recruit me. And I asked a million questions and found out how they were making the products, cutting corners. And I said, I don't want to be no part of this. And that's why I ended up not doing that because I wanted to bring good products to people if possible. So instead, I just pick really good companies and I just share with people what I personally did to overcome the issues that I was dealing with.
Wow. Okay. So we've talked a lot about all of the things, and we've mentioned hydrogen a lot of the times, and but we haven't actually gone into it. And I think you've given us a pretty good picture of how it works. We need to filter our water and make sure it's super clean, and then we add hydrogen. And you're recommending this particular product based on all of the research and the experience that you've had, and also the outcomes that you've seen people experience.
Absolutely.
A couple of questions. I mean, this is going to be good for anyone, right? doesn't, you don't have to be sick and looking for a solution to get the benefits of having hydrogen in your water or
No,
adding hydrogen.
you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct because one of the things about hydrogen is that it's anti-aging, or appears to be anti-aging, because I don't make any claims. But they have some really good data in Japan. I could even tell you about a particular study that they did. But all I can tell you is this, and this is the statistics. If this is your whole lifespan,
Hmm.
and this is all the money you're going to spend in medical care throughout your entire life, did you know that 90% of the money you will spend on medical care happens in the last 10 years of your life?
Wow.
That is a statistic that is factual. So what it shows you is that as you get older, you have more medical problems. What a surprise. What a shocker, right? I mean, isn't it obvious? And so anything that's anti-aging would only make sense that it would most likely be good for your health.
Mm.
Not every time, but quite often. And hydrogen to me is one of those things. And so it's really important to, in the Japanese, what they believe, which is very different than America, it's actually the opposite. In Japan, they believe in preventative care.
Yes.
America believes in emergency care once you're sick. And so preventative care, in my opinion, is way more important because once you're sick, like I was, the level of effort that you have to put in, astronomically higher. You got to be way more strict when you're sick as compared to trying to prevent, being sick.
Mm. How often would someone have to drink hydrogen water? Like, what's the deal? Do you just drink it instead of your normal water? Do you take it like medicine? How does it work?
Yeah, that question is a lot like, how often should I eat healthy in order to lose weight? To me, you have to create a lifestyle.
Mm.
And when it comes to water, you really should be drinking water virtually every single day. You want to be properly hydrated. That's why I'm so picky. I mean, I can show it to you right now. The equipment is literally right next to
Yeah,
me.
sure.
Oh, you want to see it?
Yeah, if
Well,
you
this is,
if you if you can swing your camera around, it might be.
yeah, well, this is the equipment just to clean the water, by the way. So
Oh,
this right
right.
here is a
Okay.
part of this stuff. So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
just
Yep.
that's just to clean the water.
Yep.
Then to put hydrogen in it, well, that's another piece of equipment right here.
Uh-huh.
And so I have my little setup, but it's an easy setup. It's nothing particularly crazy complicated. The technology is there. And you're going to drink water every single day. You're primarily made of water. Come on, people. You're primarily made of water. So what I do is pretty much drink mostly hydrogen water from the equipment. I have certain protocols about how to stay properly hydrated throughout the day. And this goes for beauty too. A lot of people are like, well, I want amazing skin and all this stuff. I used to have terrible skin. I had a lot of problems with acne too. And I wasn't thinking about that when I was on my deathbed. But when I started changing my life, all the acne going away, my skin totally cleared up to where people tell me, oh my gosh, you're so lucky you have great skin. I'm like, I ain't lucky. It's how you live your life what can transform your flesh and your organs and your body. And it really is quite magical, the things that you can do. And people spend, a small fortune going to dermatologists and doctors and just totally throwing their money away when they can just get a few very basic things. But I'll tell you right now, clean water and the best hydrogen in the world, it's the easiest thing you can do, rather than changing a lot of things. And I'll give you one example that I hate giving this one, but I'm going to give it to you because it's so important. I'm not going to name who it is, but there was somebody that I knew who had issues with blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, arthritis, and glaucoma. These were the medical issues that he had. He did not want to change anything in his life. He did not want to stop eating his cheeseburgers and French fries and drinking beer and drinking wine and going to restaurants and going on vacations. He didn't want to stop doing this stuff. The only thing he was willing to do is, he even told me, he said, I'm willing to do the whole process to clean the water like you do because it's easy. And I'm willing to put the hydrogen in it because it's easy. And so this was the only two things he was willing to do. I myself thought that it wouldn't work for all his medical issues. I mean, this guy was in his 70s, a lot of issues, and I thought he'd have to change his life for it to really work. But the positive thinker that I am, I thought, you know what? Let's see if the hydrogen in the clean water will work, even if he's eating cheeseburgers and French fries and processed food and all this garbage. And guess what? All his medical issues did go away. And it was so unbelievable how powerful hydrogen in clean water is. But I also believe, had he integrated the healthy lifestyle, I believe that his results would have even been faster because most of his issues took 6 to 8 months to go away. His eye issues took 3 years. In fact, we thought it wasn't even going to work until the third year. And then we saw the medical issues go away. His doctor was shocked. He actually thought he was testing him incorrectly because he was showing up negative for glaucoma. This guy had had glaucoma for over 3 decades. It doesn't just go away, especially as you get older. It only gets worse. And so they sent him to one of the number one experts in the United States to verify this because he had been tested multiple times and they thought there was problems with their equipment. They thought this can't be possible. And so I've witnessed the impossible multiple times. I actually have a doctor who recently sent me scans of a brain tumor, by the way, from the Mayo Clinic, no less. And then they use certain protocols that I've created and the brain tumor is totally gone. So
Get
this
out of
is
town.
really, it's so crazy. I'm gonna have to share that video soon because I haven't even made it yet. So it's been absolutely dramatic, what can be done, with the proper protocols.
Mm. And I just find it, I mean, it sounds like literally like a miracle cure, right? And I am so curious. I'm so curious about why these things get shut down, suppressed, and then not being used more widely by medical institutions to
I
help
should say
people.
this. I should say this. In Japan, there are roughly 30 university hospitals that do use this technology.
Right.
So they are doing it in
Yeah.
Japan. They're just not doing it everywhere else. And
And are
when I
there,
tried,
sorry, sorry.
no, and when I tried to bring the information to America or different countries, I've been attacked. You're
Mm,
probably going to notice it on your video when you release it. There's people who literally go around everywhere I go, every interview I do, and they badmouth me. They say a bunch of stuff about me. They say that I'm a charlatan, all these very negative things. And it's so hurtful because I've turned down things that could bring me personally wealth and all sorts of things that would be great for me to try to bring good information. And it's brought a lot of criticism. It's
mm,
brought a lot of negative things. And it's because of people who are specifically they're they're bought and paid for basically. Some of them are even literally paid just to hound me. I've been harassed. I've been threatened. There's been a lot of things, and I'm still a nobody. I'm still a very nobody knows who I am virtually, and I've tried so hard to get the word out. And to be honest with you, Nadine, I've gotten pretty tired to the point where I'm like, why am I even doing this anymore? I gave 10 years of my life to try to really help, and it never took off the way I thought it would. I literally thought it was going to take off like crazy because of the things that I witnessed. And instead, it's been a lot of ridicule and a lot of terrible things. And the problem is, I have so much data. It's not
mm.
like I'm just saying these things. I have thermal imaging studies I've released on my YouTube channel. I have, for example, my video number 8. It literally shows cells being bombarded by radiation or chemotherapy with or without hydrogen, and you can see the evidence for yourself. You get massive cellular destruction without hydrogen, which means it's basically killing you when you're destroying your cells. And with hydrogen, you would get almost no cellular death. It was so unbelievable. I've released live blood analysis, my video number 68. The live blood analysis showing the equipment that I used and how it affects the blood. Keio University, the number one university hospital in the world that shows the technology of hydrogen and how they proved and showed that it opens what's called ghost vessels, which is absolutely dramatic. I believe that I'm one of the first people in the world that's proven how to absorb nutrients properly because that's another problem. You don't totally absorb nutrients properly. And I believe that hydrogen has not only transformed my ability to absorb nutrients, hence the reason that I have no deficiencies, but on top of it all, and this is where the doctor got me even thinking, she said, if you're not consuming certain foods, how in the world are you producing the nutrients? I mean, this is
Right.
impossible because she's thinking within the box. It took me years later of research, again, that I found out that hydrogen and other methods that I'm doing in these protocols get your own body to produce the nutrients, which is bonkers because I never thought, I didn't even put two and two together. It appears that I'm producing at least 40% of my nutrients. That's a lot. That's
Wow.
almost half all my nutrients. My body's producing them. So, how do you get your body to produce them? Guess what? It happens in your GI system. And our GI system is so out of control as far as damage because in our water, I mean, I'll go back to lab reports if we want to do this, but there are certain pharmaceuticals in our water, 3 specifically that are at the highest levels. One of them is antibiotics. How do you think that affects your GI system? You
Wow.
think your body's going to be able to produce nutrients if you're killing your gut microbiome? Not to mention the forever chemicals and how that affects it. How about microplastics and how that affects you hormonally? And we already know, we've seen the data about the youth, for example, like males have lower testosterone levels that they used to have back in the day. Why is that happening? We pretty much know microplastics plays a huge role on hormonal regulation or dysregulation, really. And so there's so many things that are happening. If you clean the water that I just showed you, the way to do it, that eliminates all the microplastics. See, this is why doing this is so important. And you're bringing this water into your body every day to bring proper hydration, though hydrogen hydrates you better. And that's actually one of the biggest things that's an issue for the elderly as you get older. This is the reason why the elderly get heat stroke so easily, is because they're not properly hydrated. The majority of people are actually not properly hydrated. So the majority of people are not properly hydrated and they're deficient in nutrients. What do you think that's going to affect your health? This is like a train going 100 miles an hour into a wall. You got to stop this, because otherwise you're going to hit that wall and you're going to be done for. And so good health is actually quite simple, but it does start with clean water, in my opinion, and then hydrogen takes it to a whole other level. And I should tell you this before your next question. Have you ever heard of a place called Lourdes, France, or Lourdes, France?
Yes, yes, I have. Yeah.
The healing waters of Lourdes,
Healing
right?
waters, yeah.
All these people. And ironically, the equipment that I use is called the Lourdes Hydrofix.
Ah,
It's named after that place. Why? Because scientists couldn't understand why that water was so special. The Japanese are the ones who figured it out. That water has high levels of molecular hydrogen dissolved into it. That's where the magic seems to happen in regards to the Lourdes water. It literally is like holy water. And ironically, the website's called Holy Hydrogen. It's just so crazy that they did that. And
and they
hydrogen
did they know anything about Lords?
not when they created, my understanding is not when they created their website,
Okay.
but the Japanese did know about the Lourdes water because they're the ones who discovered the hydrogen content in
Got it.
it. So it was a perfect name for it.
Wow. It's a, yeah, I mean, it sounds like a real winner, doesn't it? And a total no-brainer, but it does take effort when we're working on our health and wellness, whether it is the physical or the spiritual, we got to do the work. There is an element of putting in the effort, putting yourself first, and saying that you're important enough to do the things. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it takes effort to drink your water
mm,
every
yeah,
day.
some people
It takes
have
effort to,
difficulty doing that, don't they?
and stop drinking all the garbage, the
Yeah,
diet
yeah,
sodas or the sodas. I still can't believe that, in America, the numbers are 1 in 2 people. So 50% of Americans drink 1 to 3 soda pops a day. I just think that's insanity because we know that that stuff is, I mean, don't get me started on what's in that stuff. So, you start drinking the best water, not just water, not just
mm,
tap water, the best water in the world with the best hydrogen in the world. It's no wonder that the body responds. It's an absolute miracle in my opinion. But hey, water is a miracle. I mean, it really is. If you really began to understand what happens when the water gets shut off in your house, how long are you going to go without water? Not very long.
not very long. No, it is a life giver, isn't it?
It is.
What was I going to say? I'm conscious that we're kind of coming to a close, and obviously, um, you're super passionate about this and about educating people. Don't give up. I feel like some of the probably the most successful people in, I mean, and I know that that's not your driving force from what you've said, that the driving force is just trying to get the message out there so that people can be well and heal. But some of the most successful people, it takes time, right? You know,
Well, you know what I mean?
people say there's not an overnight success, and you see these people with the great accolades, and they're like, I've been doing this for 20 years, and you've only just heard about me. So, you got to
And
keep.
not to interrupt you, but the thing is this: I have the truth is that I have a certain spiritual path
Mm,
that I've been embarking on. I made a promise when I made my prayer, and I'm fulfilling on that promise. But that is coming to an end. And I'm going to pivot and shift into another stage of my life because I'm running out of time. Look, none of us live very long. If we're really honest about our life expectancies, they're all very short. I mean, it's a blink of an eye in the grand scheme of things.
mm,
And I did what I could do in regards to sharing this information with people, but I am going to be disappearing in the very, very near future to go further, do other things that I wish to do on a more spiritual front. But I will say that hydrogen, believe it or not, I've discovered is part of the spiritual journey. In fact, one thing that I can share with you that's really magical about hydrogen that I've discovered is that I actually call it the ascension molecule. So
mm.
we're talking about something that's so pure. it's actually more pure than oxygen. In fact, in deep sea diving, they literally have to remove almost all the oxygen out of the tanks because oxygen is too toxic for the human body. And they have to fill the tanks with hydrogen, by the way, because it's a more pure gas. And hydrogen, when I say it's the ascension molecule, hydrogen literally ascends like a balloon all the way to the heavens. And it's in the Lourdes water, right? In Lourdes, France. And I didn't discover the spiritual impact that it would have even on my brain. My brain functions at my age better than it did, 25, 30 years ago, which is unbelievable to me because usually when you're younger, you're super sharp. And the way that I've been affected have actually been dramatic to me. I never thought it would do the things it did for my body, my blood, my mind, and everything else. And so I'm seeking to follow my spiritual path. And to do that, I can't do this as much, right? I can't, help people with consults, make all these videos, even the podcasts. So I'm kind of running to the end of that. I felt like I committed and put a lot of my life into it. And if I was a normal person, yeah, I probably would be some form of business owner and I probably would go that route. And yes, you could be successful, but to me, success is not about money.
Mm.
When I had my near-death experience, I quickly learned while I was on the other side that you don't take money with you. You don't take the things with you. In fact, the only things that you take with you, and I'm going to just give you my opinion, but my opinion is based on what I saw when I was over there. You only take the good and the bad that you have done to others. That's the majority of what you're taking to the other side. And everything that you did to somebody else, you're going to feel it, by the way. And there is no hiding from it. On the other side, I learned very quickly that you don't hide from anything that you've ever done or thought. And so it was a huge inspiration. I've never been a terrible person anyway, but it inspired me to only want to be better and do better and help others because me helping others is the food for my soul. I know how to feed my body, but to feed my soul is the good that I bring to others and the things that I can bring to them to help them. And there's such a reward on the other side for doing that beyond money. That's why I don't want to get trapped in a business. When you create a business and you think you own it and it ends up owning you. And I've seen that before. And I did that in my past when I was young. And I did own a business when I was younger. And I absolutely I didn't like it. And so for the journey that I'm wanting to embark on, I don't want anything to do with the business and a lot of the things of this world because it gets too complicated, too political, too much mumbo jumbo. And I only want to seek to improve myself. And I believe that the more you improve yourself, the more you can share that beauty with others and that joy with others. And I'm seeking to share this knowledge that I've gained with others to help them because that feeds my heart, that feeds my soul. And someday when I meet my maker, I'll be able to go ahead and do that without shame.
Lovely. Greg, thank you so much for joining me. I'm definitely going to check out the hydrogen water. It sounds amazing. I wish you all the best of luck with getting the word out there so that more people can learn about this miracle product. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on. And again, I only encourage your audience, if they want this word to get out, it's always up to them. They're the ones who are going to share it with
Keep
friends, with family.
sharing. Yeah.
Keep sharing. Even other podcasters, I will do this for a little bit longer. And so I'm still here to offer this information. And so if people want me to share it more, please help us get the word out. And I really hope it helps a lot of people who are suffering out there.
Thank you.